Once again, hello. My name is Ted Meyerson. I'm an AARP Maryland volunteer. On behalf of AARP Maryland, and in partnership with the State Advisory Council on Quality Care at the End of Life and the Horizon Foundation, I'd like to welcome you to another in a series of panel discussions about advanced care planning. Sadly, more than 300,000 Americans are expected to have died from the coronavirus by the end of the year. There's no way of knowing who might be included in that number. That's why everyone 18 and older should do advanced care planning to ensure they get the kind of treatments they would want and not get the kind of treatments they wouldn't want, even if the worst should happen and they became so ill they could not communicate with their health care providers. Without giving religious advice, this panel will discuss how their various faiths view advanced care, including the use of advanced directives and MOLST, which is Maryland's DNR actually, and about sanctioned and non-sanctioned pre-death and post-death treatments and rituals. Our panelists are Rabbi Amy Shinerman, who serves as the hospice rabbi for Howard County, providing pastoral care to Jewish hospice patients and their families, and also works with seniors in the Jewish community. Dr. Sandra Pico is an independent conversation project and certified Hello Game facilitator for advanced healthcare planning. Before retiring, she was an associate professor of nursing, research, and gerontology at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. As a community engagement assistant for the Horizon Foundation, she introduced Speakeasy Howard to faith communities and launched the Acts of Love Ministry at the St. John Baptist Church. Imam Yaha Hendi is the Muslim chaplain at Georgetown University, a member in the Islamic Jurisprudence Council of North America, and was the Muslim chaplain at the NIH and the National Naval Medical Center in Bethesda from 1997 to 2008. Audrey Marsh leads the Gift of Peace ministry at St. John's Roman Catholic Church in Columbia, Maryland. Her involvement with end-of-life planning began 5 years ago when her pastor asked her to pick up the church's partnership with the Horizon Foundation. To date, over 1,000 participants have been through her program of workshops, panels, and speaker presentations. So let's start. Imam, what's the view of the Muslim faith about advanced care planning?
Well, thank you to start with for allowing me to be with you, and it's an honor to be with each and every one of you on such an important topic. For Islam, in general, I would love to say that life is God's given gift, and it's a blessing. And we are entrusted with our lives, we are entrusted with our souls, with our minds, and we are entrusted with the help that God provides us with. And therefore, it is mandatory in Islam to honor the trust with which God entrusted us, such as our lives. The other thing, as Islam teaches, if you give life to one soul, it will be as if you have given life to all of humanity. And if you cause death to one, it will be as if you have caused death to all of humanity. And therefore, the entire community has to work together to ensure that life is protected, is honored, is catered for to the best of our human ability. Now, at the end of the day, we will all die. One day we'll have to depart this world. So how do we do that with dignity and integrity? Islam teaches that what keeps us alive is our brain, our heart, and our soul. Now, there's so much philosophy on what the brain means and heart means and soul means. I'm not going to get into that. But what medically in Islamic biomedical ethics, what determines the life of a person is the functionality of his and her brain, his and her heart. That both have to be able to function and be innate to one another to constitute life. And therefore, what constitutes death is the natural dysfunctionality of both of the heart and the brain. Therefore, most Muslim scholars would argue that the death of one or the dysfunctionality of one does not constitute death. And therefore, at least two medical doctors with the parents or the children or the spouses have to share the decision of what to do with the person in that case. Now, in general, we are advised as Muslims to write our will, and in our will to include what we would like to happen to us. In the last 20 years, there have been a lot of research of what constitutes death that may have departed from traditional Islamic understanding of biomedical ethics. And that is, if one of these two becomes dysfunctional, then that may constitute death of the person. And therefore, you may unplug, if you will, the system that is keeping the person alive. The other thing is the person alive because of a machine? And if we take the machine off, what does that mean? Are they going to die or not? So I hope that I answered the question very briefly.
Yes, not very briefly, but you answered the question. Audrey, how do you see it?
Well, in our faith, I think the Catholic faith gets a lot more publicity for some of our end-of-life beliefs. A lot, very similar. So we're, I can put it in the simplest explanation would be there is no requirement for extraordinary means to keep prolonged life. But there is an absolute that you can't make a decision to end life. Now, I'm not talking about ending, I'm not talking about I'm talking about assisted suicide. I'm not talking about your traditional type decisions you end up making in the hospital, but I'm talking about assisted suicide and things like that. So they're off the table. And we actually have quite a few resources for that. But in general, in the last 5 years, I know the church in Maryland has really come a long way in educating the members of our community and the leaders in our churches on what is appropriate. They've relooked at things. They've relooked at burials. There's been a lot more published for the public. They have a website called In Joyful Hope, where any member of the Archdiocese can go on that website and essentially find the answer to any question they need. That was not the case when I started 5 years ago. So I think we've come a long way in our understanding and our willingness to encourage people to think about their end-of-life decisions. So,
Sandra, tell us where you're coming from with that.
Well, first of all, I think it's fair to say that the Baptist tradition, which I represent, is a very diverse group. In fact, I went to the websites of the American Baptist, the National Baptist, the Southern Baptist, the Progressive Baptist, looking for a publication that would speak to this, and really could not find an actual publication. I did find a position statement that had been written back in 1990 by the American Baptists. And it's fair to say that their main thrust is that people should be informed about what the state laws state as it relates to advanced directives. Some people call those living wills, the most life-sustaining treatments. There is no prohibition on the use of any particular treatment, but there is no statement suggesting, as Audrey identified, assisted suicide at all. And the other thing that is well appreciated is we hear around Easter time sermons on the 7 last words of Jesus as he approached crucifixion and resurrection. And if you go through the scriptures and the Gospels that speak to those, you get a sense of what Jesus saw as components of advanced care planning. And I think I can go into more detail in another segment.
All right. Now, I did save Rabbi for last because that happens to be my faith, and I know it covers such a wide spectrum from ultra-Orthodox to Reconstructionist and beyond. And so I'm going to give her the terrible task of trying to find the thread that might go through all of that.
The thread that goes through all of that, the frame that contains it all, is the outlook that life is precious. Iman Hendi, as you put it, a blessing. And indeed, we would concur with that. And at the same time, we see death as the natural end of life. Medical treatment that can save or preserve life is good, but not absolutely so, because we recognize that there is a time when it is appropriate to cease medical treatment and allow nature to take its course. Generally speaking, we are not permitted to hasten death, but neither are we required to prolong life where there is no hope of recovery, and especially when a person is suffering. So there are questions about pain relief and the use of pain relief. That is considered good, but there are certain kinds of pain relief that might hasten death. That's probably a more nuanced conversation. And since you asked me to represent the entire spectrum, I should also say that there are more and more rabbis who are considering the ethical side of death with dignity. Because we live in a world in which so many artificial means are used to prolong life beyond anything that nature would ever support, that in some cases, they seem to be largely prolonging suffering. And that's a legal issue in the liberal end of the community that it just so happens that I'm working on with 2 colleagues right now. But more to the point here, we are facing decisions previous generations did not concerning the use of life support apparatus. When is it appropriate? For how long? When not? Resuscitation. When is a DNR appropriate? When is it not? And an ever-changing, maybe that's putting it too strongly, but an evolving definition of what life and death actually means and how we determine that. So what I do want to say from the perspective of the Jewish community that I can affirm for all of us is that advanced directives are a wonderful thing to do. And I think I can see Iman Hendi is nodding in agreement, and I'm sure others are too. You are too, Audrey, and so is Sandra. Please, people, do this for yourself. Please also do this for your loved ones. But nobody can do it for you. Only you can prepare the document that is necessary. Though it could be done by video, please do it by document. It is a better way to go, so that your wishes, your choices, your values, and your priorities are well known and will be respected by those who are empowered with making the decisions. They are activated only if you become incapacitated and cannot make decisions for yourself. The best way to do this, as I just said, is through a written document. And there are a number of options available to you, including a distinctly Jewish version of advanced directives. And I will provide the link so it can be added to the video notes when this is published. Please know that doctors are obligated to follow your wishes so long as your wishes do not require them to violate the law or established medical ethics. If you want, Ted, we can talk more about what the process looks like, but I do want to make sure I encourage people to do this so that their wishes can be known and respected, and so they don't put their loved ones in the heart-wrenching position of trying to figure out what decisions to make for them without knowing what they want.
That was a wonderful summary, and time goes so fast when you're having this much fun that I want to jump to another, not another topic, but something that was touched upon. Everyone agrees life is a gift of God. Everyone agrees the human body is a sanctuary. But how do each of you feel about organ donation? I think that becomes very important. You can put it on your driver's license, or whatever. But how would you feel about that? And so, Amy, Rabbi, I'll start with you first.
That's an easy and quick one. In my opinion, it's a mitzvah. It's a divine obligation. I do not want to take with me anything that somebody else could use to sustain or promote life. Let them have it. So I think it's a wonderful thing to do. It's on my driver's license. It's been on my driver's license. And from the moment one was able to submit any kind of genetic material and get on the list, I put myself on the list.
Sandra, we're going in reverse order this time. Your turn.
I too am an organ donor. It's on my driver's license as well. But I would say that is not a universal opinion. For instance, I have a mother who's 89, and we recently reviewed with her advanced directive, and we asked her how she felt about organ donation, and she did not like the sound of that at all. But I think it's a reflection of just her comfort with the idea. From my perspective, I live on if someone can use my organs. So I'm fully supportive of that. And I've never heard anyone in our faith disagree with that.
And how about you, Audra?
I'm with both of you. I've also had it on. I've had it on. I've had it on driver's license from day one, and I'm a huge supporter. And I have neighbors and friends who are on transplant lists, so I totally understand the importance and what a gift it is to those who can accept it. And our faith doesn't have. There are no the only time somebody would say if you're going to try to kill somebody for an organ would be, if you were going to. I shouldn't have said it that way. If you're going to speed up someone's death for the sake of organ donation, that might be an issue. But but normal organ donation is not a problem at all.
And Iman.
I too, I have it on my driver's license. And it is kosher in Islam, it is halal, it is legal, it can be even encouraged to do. Some Muslim scholars would go as far as saying it's mandatory that one directs people to allow people to donate their organs after death. I want to refer to the Catholic position. Can organ donation not be halal? Yes, if it undermines a living person cannot donate an organ that undermines his health or her health for the sake of bringing life to someone else.
Right.
That would be absolutely not kosher and not halal in Islam. Otherwise, after my death, absolute organ donation.
We have gotten to a place where we've spent a half hour. It just goes so fast. I'll offer each of you 1 minute if you'd like to make a summary statement, and I'll start with Audrey this time.
Oh, gee. Simply put, I would say that from my personal experience, it's important to have the discussion. It's important to have the discussion primarily with your healthcare agent, and then to make sure that your healthcare agent understands and can fulfill your wishes, and then make sure that your family understands what those wishes are and aren't in the hospital disputing those wishes. We've had experiences in the past with some clergy who just who know that environment and therefore were uncomfortable bringing this to their congregations. Not mine. Mine were behind it 100%. But in some churches, they're not. And it's that exact environment that causes that reluctance. And so they, I can't say enough how important it is because it saves so much pain for the families.
Iman, I'll give you 1 minute.
1 minute.
Can you do it?
I'm not going to tell him 1 minute. I would say either we need to live with dignity or die with dignity. And therefore, advance directive is a good thing, is a moral thing, and is the right thing to do. We do all we can to heal, to recover, to bring about treatment. We believe that people after death will join with God and be in a different life better than this.
You did wonderfully. Thank you. Sandra, your turn.
I think it's important to point out in my case, there are some intersections between the Baptist faith and the history of African Americans in this country with the healthcare system. And for that reason, it's difficult for some people to discuss advanced care planning because of the history of, say, the Tuskegee experiment, where a 40-year period went by and African American men were not allowed access to penicillin to treat syphilis. And this was done without respect for their rights as research participants. So that makes it difficult. But also, they have not always gotten the highest level of care. And there is some suspicion that even the use of hospice is a direct attempt to withhold vital care. In other words, not curative care. So that makes it more difficult to get, I will say, general adoption of advanced care planning. But I think the best thing that people could do is go to a website called Advanced Care Planning Decisions. And that website offers individuals access to videos that discuss the pros and cons of using each life-sustaining treatment. And lastly, the Baptist faith does support death with dignity, and a focus on quality instead of quantity of care.
Rabbi?
I can affirm just about everything I've heard everybody say in their summaries, and particularly appreciate, Sandy, what you just said. And that being the case, I would also add that in addition to, as the Imam noted, making out advance directives is a good and moral thing to do. It is an extraordinarily powerful thing to do, because you are taking control of the decisions in your own life and at the end of your life. And I would also add that it is an extraordinarily compassionate thing to do. This is going to help your loved ones, as Audrey noted. Sometimes it puts relatives who are forced to make these decisions in a difficult position, and it pits one against another as they're trying to make the decision. It is also much better for the medical personnel who are trying to help you and your loved ones. So there is a great deal of compassion and control over your own end of life that goes into this. So please take up both of those and fill out advance directives for your sake and for everyone's sake.
I want to thank each of you for participating in this. It's been instructive to me. I hope that the audience that will view this will find it as instructive. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.